Hello everyone, welcome to the video. I want to give you a quick overlook on those three watches. On the left I have Cronos Submariner Homage. In the middle, Davosa Ternos GMT, and on the right hand side, Steinhart double green ceramic 42mm. All of those watches obviously Rolex homages, and the differences between those at first glance are not so obvious because all of them look quite good, but I want to go to fine details on each of them so you can make up your mind which direction to go if you are considering any of those three. So let's start with price. Cronos is the cheapest of the three. The purchase price for me in Poland was 1,200 zloty, which is around $300. For Davosa, the price is much higher. This is currently one of the most expensive watches I have. The price for this one is around 7,000 zloty. Yeah, you can do the math. Basically around 5 to 6 times cheaper than the Cronos. More expensive, sorry. And for the Steinhart, it's 2 times cheaper, 2.5 times cheaper than the Davosa, around 3,000 zloty. The biggest factor that makes Davosa and Steinhart more expensive than Cronos is obviously that those two are Swiss made and this one is made in China. Why does the place of origin affect the price? Possibly the quality control and the process itself. I would say that Swiss-made watches, because they are based in Europe and produced in Europe, there are more strict requirements for quality than in China. But it doesn't mean China cannot make good watch, and I will prove to you that this one, Cronos, can really put up a fight against Swiss-made watches like Davosa and Steinhart. So, all of those three watches use ceramic bezels. All of those three watches use 316L stainless steel. The difference in bezels would be mainly in lumpip and in the engravings, I mean the numbers. So for Davosa, I'm not sure if it's easy to spot if I show it like that, but the numbers actually are not only engraved but also are filled in with some shiny white stuff. I don't know what kind of material is that, but it's exactly the same for Davosa. So we have engraving for numbers and something white inside that shines, and I really like it. For Steinhart, it's more raw, so we have only engraved numbers and it's very matte, kind of like cement, maybe inside. It's obviously not cement, maybe it's raw ceramics without any kind of polish. I believe cement would be just my comparison to the feel and looks, but yes, the numbers don't shine, they are matte. And the only shiny piece of the bezel would be the lumpip, which is triangle shaped in that case, and all of the triangle shines. In Davosa, nothing in the bezel is loomed, and in Cronos we have loom pip as if original Rolex. It's also available with full bezel loom, so all numbers are shiny. In the night, I didn't want to go that direction. Staying with the bezel, what else are the differences? Actually, those two are very similar in terms of sizing and finish. So when we take a look, you can see we have polished upper side and brushed side. For Davosa, it's all polished, only the insides of the teeth are brushed. But the size of the bezel teeth is almost identical compared to the Cronos. And for Steinhart, the teeth are all brushed and very massive. Let's take a look side by side. You can see how much bigger the teeth are on Steinhart. And basically those teeth are very much... And actually those teeth are big part of the diameter. For Davosa, not so much. Also for Cronos. What it means? It means that Davosa and Cronos, which are both in 40 millimeters, can have bigger dial compared to total diameter than Steinhart can, because bezel and the teeth take so much place. Let's go further down the dial. Let's focus maybe on the first, on the top element, which is Cyclops. All of those have Cyclops. I like it. I like Cyclops. I know many people don't. For me, it just gives something extra, something more interesting to play with the light. And additionally, the fact that I have the date is really useful. Some people make different opinions on symmetry, that it's better to have watch in Submariner style without the date, which is more versatile. To be honest, I like it with the date. It just works for me. More versatile, I don't care. I just want to know the date, and I like the way it plays with the light. So on Cronos, we have 2.5 magnification, and it's perfectly aligned. On Davosa, it's also 2.5 magnification, perfectly aligned. And on Steinhart, you have 1.5 times magnification and perfectly aligned. As you already can see, when I was showing you those Cyclops and the date frames, there are differences. Cronos doesn't use any extra white frame around. The numbers are big and easy to read and perfectly centered. In Davosa Ternos GMT, the numbers are kind of close to the upper frame. Additionally, we have the white frame around the window, which makes it harder to read. Kind of white line, black line, and again thin lines for the numbers. Maybe if the numbers were thicker, it would be better to read, but in current state, it's not so easy to read. I find myself often looking closer. at Davosa to actually see the date. And in Steinhart, it's very easy to read the date, but the magnification is not so good. And the Cyclops itself is much bigger than it's supposed to be. It looks a little bit funny, to be honest. As you can see, the date frame doesn't fill in the Cyclops window. Maybe takes around 40% of the surface of the area. And yeah, but at least it's easy to read. So, best date frame, second best in terms of legibility, and this one is the worst in terms of easy to read date. Alright, let's go deeper to the dial. On the Cronos, it's a black, deep, rich black dial, same as you can obviously recognize on Submariner. On Davosa, it's supposed to be, I believe, the same, but I don't know if you can see this. It looks to me that either the sapphire on Davosa is cloudy or the dial itself is more gray than black. Maybe actually even two those factors are at the same time. But yeah, in terms of crystal, Cronos is better. Or maybe in terms of legibility, Cronos is better. It gives more contrast in every light conditions. And Steinhart, very legible. The biggest dial of the three. Easy to read, very easy to read because of the size, and also the contrast is there. The sapphire crystal, I believe, is also as clear as one on the Cronos. And obviously the sunray green dial, styled as in Hulk Submariner, yeah, Relic Submariner Hulk, sorry, just gives it this extra light play. I really like it. So, we covered the dial. What about the hands? In terms of hands, unfortunately, Cronos is, simply put, the worst of the three. The hands are flat. They are not too well finished. They do their job, obviously, and if you look from the distance, like normally you look at the watch, you don't see this, but when you start looking closely, you can see the edges are not too refined. The loom and those, the metal pieces where the loom is placed between are on the same level, kind of, which makes them just flat in appearance. In terms of Davosa and the Steinhart, both have very refined and high quality hands. With Davosa, it's a funny story. When I received this and I went for vacation, and obviously when you have a new watch, you start looking at it more and more, and you start noticing maybe some flaws. And for this one, the minute hand was not polished on one side. It was very rough. And I had to, after the vacation, I returned it for the guarantee. And yeah, they switched the minute hand. So I have new minute hand in Davosa, and now it's perfect. But it's just worth mentioning that this happened. For Steinhart, from the first day. The dial is mint condition. The hands are perfect. Very similar level of finishing. Obviously here we have additional hand for the GMT, for the additional time zone, which makes this dial just a little bit more busy and interesting. So maybe let's discuss bracelets now. Starting from the Cronos. This bracelet from the end links resembles very much the Rolex Submariner. But the impression really quickly stops being fact. Instead, it changes to some cheap bracelet which has some loose elements. The only really, and as you can see, the first two links are thick. Next ones are much thinner. I can actually show you side by side with Steinhart, and you can see just how much of a big difference there is between those bracelets. In terms of bracelet as, a tool, bracelet on Cronos just does its job. It's well polished on the sides, it's well brushed on the top, it sits well. They were not too flimsy with placing the end links there. The case itself is also very nice, finished, polishing without any flaws. Crown guards, also very nicely polished. As you can see, the transition from brushing to polishing is very well done. Signed crown, vertical brushing on the lugs, which I personally like way more than the ones on Davosa. Davosa makes vertical brushing on the bracelet, but it's kind of diagonal brushing on the lugs. In terms of finishing, nothing to say except that it's basically the same kind of level that we have on Cronos. The only difference is actually how much the lugs curve, because as you can see on Cronos they look like they are curved, but the case is very flat. On Davosa, the ears, the lugs really curve down to fit the wrist. Talking about this fitment, I cannot just stretch enough how much flatter Steinhart is. Just look at this. This is really flat watch. If you don't have a very big wrist, don't go with 42mm. I bought 42 and I regret. I should have gone with 39 instead. But yeah, it is what it is, and it's flat, and I really stopped enjoying this watch because of this, but the green dial and the bezel makes up for that, and sometimes it just fits the best because of the color and the way it plays with the light. So what's other thing I wanted to mention is the crown. As you can see on the Steinhart, basically it's really hard to make it aligned, to make the logo perfectly vertical or horizontal, whatever. I cannot turn it anymore, but yeah, it has to stay like this. For the other two watches, not a problem. With Davosa, I can make it perfectly aligned. And with Cronos as well, it can be perfectly aligned. It's small detail, but some people, including myself, pay attention to this. Let's talk a little bit more about the Sapphire, because there's one more thing worth mentioning. How much actually the Sapphire sticks out. And there's not really much to say. Cronos just is sticking much more, like 2 times more than the other two, as you can see, or even 3 times more. I would say that Davosa and Steinhart have the same kind of level. Maybe Davosa a little bit thinner in terms of the Sapphire position. So Cronos loses in that competition, and those two are really close to each other. All of those watches have really good lume. All of those markers are applied, but Davosa and Steinhart are top-notch in terms of precision. Every line, every printing, every marker is perfect. Perfectly positioned, perfectly applied. On the Cronos, there are 2 things. The 6-hour marker is misaligned. I don't know if you can see this, but it is kind of closer to the minute marker on the right than to the minute marker on the left. Makes such appearance, but it's really slightly off. The other thing I would like Cronos to have is the hour hand to have a little bit thicker hand. Like Mercedes circle is alright, but as you can see, our hand itself is kind of thin, especially in terms of how much lume there is compared to Davosa. It shows, especially when in darker conditions. This one looks kind of funny because of this thin hand compared to other two. But it's minor detail, but still it's worth mentioning. Maybe let's listen to bezels, one by one. To Davosa. And Steinhart. So, as you can hear, Cronos is the most high-pitched crackling sound. Those two are very similar. I would say Cronos is turning the easiest. This one is on the second place, and this one is the hardest to turn, which doesn't mean it's hard. It just means it slightly slips during the rotation. This one, because of the big teeth, is really easy to grab and just turn. And this one, even though it has polished sides of the bezel, it's really easy to grip and turn because it's not so stiff. I wouldn't say any of those is better. For me, it really doesn't matter as long as the loom tip is aligned perfectly. It works for me as long as I'm able to turn it and it doesn't sound like some rattling, strange sound. It's okay to me. I would say in that those two are the best. Why this one, I would say, is the worst? Because there were times, I don't know why, if it's because of the moisture in the air or temperature, this one can get really stiff. Sometimes I even felt it stuck. I couldn't turn it at all. I had to really use all my force to start turning around. Now, as you can see, it works, but there were times I was not able to turn it and really had to use all my strength to make it work. Okay, before we go to the movements, let's talk about the clasps. The clasp in the Cronos is, I would say, the most useful, but it's the one that is not so refined. As you can see, it's very thick compared to the bracelet, which looks a little bit silly. It opens nice when you have a nail. Nicely polished inside. The advantage that Cronos have is the glide lock system. It's useful. It's much easier to use than the regular macro adjustments, which we can find on the remaining ones. Actually, Davosa and Steinhart, they both use the same kind of clasp. Nothing really interesting around here. So like this, and we have it opened. And we can use 4 micro adjustment levels. That's that. I want to just point one thing. In Cronos, what I noticed are very sharp corners. If you're not careful with your watch, you, for example, around your car, and you touch it with those edges, you can scratch your car, you can hurt someone even. It's really, really sharp. What else I wanted to point? That the clasp itself on the first glance looks very nice, but those edges, those places are the ones that lack precision. I don't know, something they missed during brushing process. It's hard to see on the camera, but I can guarantee that there are some imperfections, like the brushing tool didn't get to the place it's supposed to get. But overall, it's very nice, very useful, and yeah, it does its job. Because of the glide lock, it's very useful. So overall, in terms of the case finishing, all of them are good, but I would say that Davosa is the best. Davosa just has the most precise machining. The bracelet just feels really solid. There are no imperfections. Steinhart would be on the same level only if they made it more curved to hug the wrists. And those teeth, those massive teeth, there's no need for them to be so big. And all brushed, sorry. Here is just more precision, more refinement on Davosa. In terms of Cronos, the case, ignoring the bracelet, it's really, really, really well done, and it really can compare to Davosa, but the bracelet just lacks this level of refinement. Still, it's very comfortable. All of those three watches are really comfortable to wear, but this one is the least because of the flat lugs. So, I would say it's time to talk about the movements. Steinhart and Cronos use the same movement. Yeah, this one is Sellita SW201, and this one exactly the same movement. Even though it's a Chinese watch, they managed to make a deal with Sellita to provide them with those movements. And I actually opened the case back. I will put some photo in the video where you can see the marking of the movement, and it is Sellita. So it's a Chinese movement, Chinese watch with Swiss movement. To me, it's really amazing, considering the price. Let me remind you that the price of this watch is around $300, and the price of the movement SW201 is around $200. So just it's amazing how much of the price of the watch is the movement in that particular one. For Steinhart, it's exactly the same movement. The only difference is that we have a see-through case back, which I like. I like those movements to be seen. Those two don't have see-through case backs, and actually it makes the wearing experience a bit different. So those two were on the skin very similar, because this one is flat glass, and this one is flat steel. But this one has really sharp engravings, logo, writing. It's very rough edges. What it means? It means that when I was wearing Davosa for a long time, especially during hot days in the summer, my skin on my forearm was sore. It looked like it's very, like you could use some coarse material and just rubbing, and you get your skin very shiny, like almost like some kind of wound. It wasn't a wound, but it wasn't a nice feeling. With those two, it shouldn't happen because they are really, really flat and comfortable to the skin. I forgot to mention about the movements themselves. Davosa is also using movements which are based on Sellita. This one is using, if I'm correct, the modified 330-1 movement, which they call Dav something. but it's basically this movement. And now the really interesting fact is that Davosa and Steinhart out of the box have kind of good precision of timekeeping, around plus minus more to plus 10 seconds per day. But Cronos, and this is really amazing, I have set this watch last week. I wore it for all the week. I didn't have to adjust the time even once. It's really 0 seconds per day. It's probably also because how I wear it. I work here. This is my working place. I work by the PC home, so I don't make too many movements with my arm, which can mean how much the spring is loaded. I would say this one is not loaded 100% all the time, and maybe that affects the precision, but nevertheless I have many other watches as well, automatic, Certina for example, or Mido. Mido is also very precise, but this one is the highest precision timekeeper in atomic between my automatic watches. It's really amazing. I don't know if they regulate those Celita movements themselves or am I the lucky one, but it really is 0 seconds per day. So precise, like a quartz watch. Yeah, and I believe that's all I want to discuss. Maybe some summary with my personal opinions. So, in terms of best value, which one of those is the best value? Easy pick, Cronos. $300 Celita movement, sapphire crystal, all stainless steel, ceramic bezel, really high quality of case. It's really, really, really good value in terms of final price and what you get. In terms of best quality, I would say those two watches, especially Davosa. Davosa would be the highest level of precision from those three in terms of how well finished the watch can be, and how beautiful it can play with the light, especially with the Jubilee bracelet. The best wear, as I said, those two watches are the best to wear, even though the Jubilee bracelet is amazing on the skin. Those two wear better in long term because of the flat case backs. They don't hurt your skin, and that's why those two are better wearers. For the looks, those two are my picks. Davosa with the Pepsi and the Jubilee, wow, it's beautiful. It's simply beautiful watch. It wraps your arm beautifully. And the Cronos, it's really a looker, especially that this sapphire crystal is so clean and the dial is so deep black. Just beautiful. And the maxi case I really like. Steinhart looks also good, but I don't like the fact that it's very flat. I don't like the female end links here. and it's a little bit too big. Those watches, Davosa and Cronos, with male endings, which makes the watch wear bigger, but because they are curved and they hug the wrists, they are just perfect on the hand. For legibility, I would say this one is the best the most legible watch from those three. Maybe this one is as well. Because of this is white and black, it just gives more contrast, and it's obviously even more easy to read than this. This one would be second place because of the small cyclops, small magnification. And Davosa, it's busy dial. Luckily the applied markers here are also big, but because of this extra hand for the GMT and this unreadable date window, it's also very, very legible, but out of those three, it's the last one. Which one is the best daily wearer? For me, it's the Cronos. Why? Because it's very versatile. Stainless steel and black. It wears perfectly to the t-shirt, it wears perfectly to the sweatshirt, and because of the low price, I'm not afraid to wear it, and it feels great on the wrist. It doesn't hurt my skin. And actually, even though Steinhart is better on the wrist, I would say that Davosa would be on second place in terms of wearability. I mean, which would be the second best daily wearer. This one is just so beautiful. It's so great to look at it. The polished center links just give it a little bit more of this special feeling. In terms of best timekeeping, Cronos wins. It's keeping 0 seconds per day, and those two around plus 10 seconds, which means easy pick. And to be honest, I wear this watch the most. Let's make a couple of the wrist shots for the ending of the video. Yes, it just looks, it feels great. I really like this massive super case style. It makes me wonder how the real Submariner feels. I don't know if I'll be ever planning on buying the real Submariner, but this one really makes me wonder. And if I have a chance, I really want to try to wear Submariner, at least to get this feeling. Davosa. Beautiful, beautiful Pepsi. What I like especially about this Pepsi bezel is the fact that the colors are not so crazy. Eye-popping, eye-burning. They are not as dimmed as the original Rolex GMT2 Master, but they are darker. The hue is a bit darker, and actually this is what I was looking for this Pepsi. If you take a look at the Pepsi dials for Steinhart, the blue is really, really blue. It burns your eyes. And I like this this blue almost falls into purple. As you can see, this watch is just great looking watch. I love it. And the Steinhart, the biggest of the three. It still wears good, but you can see it's bigger. It's bigger. I'm trying to make my arm stretch it to show you these flat legs, and I hope you can see this. Yes, it is flat, and I don't like this female endings and the fact I see this bracelet like this. It's just off. Yeah. Also, this female end links, as you can see, here we have like obviously the bracelet and elements side by side, and here they tried to make it look like it's an additional element, but they didn't make it so precise, and it just looks too soft. Doesn't make too great of an impression. Let me just go through this Cronos one more time to show you how much better it fits on the sides. It's still flat, but because of the curvature, it hugs the wrist. And those end links, the male end links, are much sharper, have much sharper lines and machining, which really looks like this one looks like it's additional piece of metal, not a single piece of metal. And I like it. I like it much more than the one from Steinhart. And yeah, guys, that's all I prepared for today. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time.